Hello, and welcome to Bonus Commentary. My name is Derek, and Happy New Year's Eve to you all. It has been quite the year for movies, hasn't it? We've gotten blockbusters, we've gotten weeb bait, we've gotten indie darlings, we've gotten classics, and we've gotten trash. Not only that, but we witnessed something rather historic. The WGA and SAG-AFTRA strikes against the AMPTP. As of writing this, that strike just ended, but as of recording this, it's clear that there's still a little ways left to go. But I'm not here to talk about that. I will say congratulations real quick to the WGA and SAG for putting up a fantastic fight that was monumental. And I hope that when this thing does officially end, everyone is happy. Okay, so here's the pitch. I saw exactly 20 films that came out this year. And when I made that realization, I had an idea. I thought I'd try something unique. Is it going to be a good unique or a bad unique? Time will tell. This is my 20-sided die. I love using it for when I play D&D, and now I'm going to use it to make a list. That's right. The dice is going to tell me which entry I'm going to talk about. I do want to keep it short. There will be films that I've already covered, and I will briskly cover and tell you where to watch for my full opinion. I may come to regret this decision, but I've already written it down in the script, and this is pretty much the only scripted segment. I would like to briefly mention an honorable mention. This was a movie that I saw this year that came out a while ago, but I still enjoyed enough that I feel needs to be mentioned in my list of movies from 2023. This is Gonjiam, The Haunted Asylum. This is a Korean found footage horror movie done excellently, which is absolutely why I had to add it here. Setting the stage, we have a group of very likable protagonists with a very understandable reason of putting themselves in danger, and furthermore, we get to see some exciting angles we don't often see in this style of horror. I haven't seen such clever camera work like this since the second Paranormal Activity movie. The scares are unnerving, the plot only gets thicker and thicker as the movie goes on. If you don't want to take my gushing for it, which I totally understand, here's a fun thing. It's free to watch right now on YouTube. I've left a link in the description so you can form your own opinion. Just make sure you have the English subtitles turned on, they don't automatically turn on for you. Bet you didn't see that coming. Freebie. Okay, and now for the opening ceremonies. The first roll of the night. That is 14. My number 14 spot goes to the movie Renfield. This was a fun time from start to finish. Nicolas Cage is fantastic as Dracula. The whole cast is very talented and a lot of fun to watch. Everybody's charismatic. It doesn't really do anything too far out of what you expect it to, which is neither good nor bad. I gave this a 7 out of 10. For my next film, 4 has to go to Oppenheimer. I just recently watched this one. It is an incredible film, very well done, very terrifying in a lot of aspects. I really like the abstract nature that we saw in the opening moments of the film, but it doesn't really stick too much. So the fact that I just saw this, I'll admit that a lot of my thoughts still aren't stuck, but I will say that everybody pulled their weight. The film was provocative from minute 1 to hour 3. I never felt the weight of the runtime. It was superb. Cillian Murphy made an amazing Dr. Oppenheimer. Emily Blunt, she made an amazing performance of a very complex character. Florence Pugh is just... that's... any movie. She's a lovely lady. Back on topic. The effects were astonishing. Everything was done well, with the exception of the editing. I don't know if it's just me, but I couldn't help but get dragged out of the movie's suspension of disbelief every so often when I would notice a continuity error in somebody just talking or holding a glass up to their lips. Weird thing to know, I know, but it is something that caught my eye for the negative. Overall, this was a 9 out of 10 for me. Moving on. This is my 19. Oh good. We're jumping straight down. Normally, 19s are something to celebrate. My number 19 spot goes to Five Nights at Freddy's. I really wanted to like this one. For the record, I don't think any of the actors did a terrible job. The suit animatronics were fantastic. The set for Freddy's itself is a lot of fun to look at. I wish we could spend more time just going through it. The thing that really sticks in my craw is the script. Whoever decided to let Scott Cawthon, of all people, into the writer's room and take over, I hope they don't have a job anymore. It's a terrible thing to say, I'm sorry, but dear God, that man was a detriment to the script. It didn't make sense, it didn't know what it wanted to be, and it was, for a horror movie, not horrifying. There's one scene of any form of tension whatsoever. I am, of course, not the people they were trying to impress with this movie, that's fine, but as a movie by itself, this was a hard watch. Let's move on. That's 12. My number 12 spot goes to Shin Ultraman. While I am not myself very well versed in the lore of the Ultraman series, this was a kind of blind watch for me. And while I had a fantastic time with it, I really truly did, I will say that the pacing is a huge issue. It feels like I'm watching a season condensed into a 2-hour movie, and it's kind of hard to keep up with. That said, I did really enjoy the capturing of the Showa era hijinks that we got. It somehow didn't feel out of place with everything that we were watching. As for its rating, I gave Shin Ultraman a 7 out of 10. Moving on. That is an 18. This one goes to Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. Do I really need to say any more? I will say I ranked it higher above Five Nights at Freddy's because it was a smaller budget, a little bit more passion went into it, and I do think that while poorly executed, the director wanted to make something enjoyable. I did not enjoy it at all. I liked it more than I liked Five Nights at Freddy's because it had a cohesive story that I could understand, but this still ranks as a 3 out of 10 for me. Moving on. What was that? 13. Evil Dead Rise. This had a banger trailer, and I was very excited to see what we got, and I must say I was not disappointed. That said, we got exactly what I was expecting, nothing new or out of the ordinary. In fact, one of my problems with the movie is that the ending feels more like a checklist than a proper conclusion. The ways we get there are fantastic. The amalgamation, the blood elevator, the garage sequence. The characters in the movie are all sympathetic with the exception of the cannon fodder beyond the door. Overall, I enjoyed it, even though it was, to me, a bit flawed. This is a 7 out of 10. That is 14. We've already done that one. 15. Blackberry. A strangely dark comedy that admittedly I didn't get upon my initial viewing, but as I processed it, it did become more and more of a cautionary tale of who you can trust with your own business and the importance of being able to listen to those around you. Because you might be successful, but eventually in the world of technology, you will become obsolete, and how you treat people will be what you reflect on for the rest of your days. Again, it is actually a comedy in that a lot of the situations are very kind of like they're lying to themselves to make themselves feel better about the project, or they're allowing certain terrible situations to occur and kind of explaining them away in a way that rationally makes sense, but is inevitably the thing that leads to their downfall. This was yet another 7 out of 10 for me. Moving on. That's a 7. Shin Kamen Rider. This is amazing. I had such a great time with it. I won't spend too much time talking about it here. I talked with Sean over at Asian Movie Pulse about it here on the channel. I'll leave a link somewhere. I must say that this one came out of nowhere for me, and I really enjoyed not only the practical effects, but the fun that seemed to be had, the emotion that was had. I wasn't expecting it to be so thoughtful and provocative for a movie about a man as a cyborg grasshopper kicking ass. Were you expecting a particularly interesting human-led narrative there? I wasn't. I was very pleasantly surprised. I will say towards the end, the shaky cam got to be a little bit, but that, along with a couple of other small technical aspects, I still had a great time, and it is probably one of the more shocking movies to me this year. Moving on. What was that? 15, we've already done 15. 13, we've already done 13. That's 15 again. Talk to me. Wow. Wow. This was a strange one, because the trailers don't exactly give away what the movie is about, the themes, except for maybe that you touch this hand, you get a little weird. This is Requiem for a Dream, the horror movie. The subtleties are definitely there. I gotta say, again, it's an A24 film. It was already gonna be hard to be displeased by this anyway. The imagery is horrific, and the acting is superb. I also think it's important to note that the directors are indie YouTubers. I believe it's, the channel is Raka Raka. You'll know you're at the right place when you see Ronald McDonald beating the crap out of some children. For me, Talk to Me is a 9 out of 10. Moving on. It's 11. Cocaine Bear. Yeah, of course I was gonna love this one. The absurdist horror fan in me absolutely had a blast with this one. I went in a full house with my aunt, who doesn't particularly like horror movies, screaming every so often. It was a blast to hear. Ray Liotta's final performance. This was a bloodbath. It was fun, absurd, and just great. I had a good time with it. For me, Cocaine Bear is an 8 out of 10. Moving on. Number 5. Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. Well, I mean, this shouldn't be a surprise to anyone that it's this high up on the list. Coming from the 2000s film, I wasn't expecting too much, but what we got was a practical effects, CG effects spectacular. And situations that, even if it was just lazy writing, I know I'm personally guilty of as a dungeon master. It was a great time. I saw it many times in theaters, and for me, Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves is a 9 out of 10. Moving right along. Number 2, Inuo. I am a huge fan of the animated genre, and while this one is definitely more geared towards adults and has more adult themes, the abstract nature of it is beautiful to watch. This story is like a fairy tale told in the Edo period. This horribly disfigured person becomes this rock icon, and we get to see like Woodstock scenarios played out in this time period. It is a staggering, beautiful watch. I would recommend it to anyone. For me, Inuo is a 10 out of 10. Go grab this one. All right, moving along, we got... Wow, it took a while for this to happen. My number 1 movie of the year is Spider-Man: Across the Spider-Verse. Pretty Guardian and I talk about this over on our Pretty Nerdy podcast, so if you want a more in-depth discussion, that would be a place to go do it. The reason this is my number 1 is because in terms of a theatrical experience, no other movie left me with my jaw on the floor like this one did. The original Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse film is what I considered at the time to be the best comic book movie ever made. So for a sequel to come and blow that out of the water was baffling to me. We get a new level of detail, we get new ideas in terms of visuals presented, we get a lot of amazing just cinema. The acting was fantastic, and I know I'm kind of alone in this boat. The cliffhanger ending leading into a sequel really made me happy. It told me that they really told the story that they wanted to tell. For me, Spider-Man, obviously sitting at number 1, is a 10 out of 10. But we aren't done yet. Moving right along. 19 we've already done. 11 we've already done. 10. Number 10. Guardians of the Galaxy 3. No, I had no idea this was going to be this good when I sat down and watched it. I gotta say that this was really interesting. This was James Gunn's final Marvel anything, and it's a giant middle finger to Disney. A supervillain that goes around taking the collective talents of the universe to mold into its own image. I see you, James. It's very clear. The acting in this one is great. My only complaints kind of stem from some very technical issues. The fact that they didn't have the testicular fortitude to end Peter Quill in a place where he very obviously was meant to die. That's a bit of a bummer. It would have had more of an emotional impact and made more sense for Rocket at the end. This movie is an 8 out of 10. What is that? 18 we've done, 8 we've done. Oh boy. Number 1 we've done. 15. Wow. This is gonna be fun for the edit. 3. We have not done 3. Number 3. Killers of the Flower Moon. I'll admit to a level of ignorance. I had no idea this story existed on a myriad of levels. This movie hits a lot of check marks for me. I was disgusted. I was taken aback by the beauty, the acting, the story. I really have nothing negative to say. This was a superb movie. The other 2 entries are higher up because they hit me in more positive and entertaining ways. Again, I felt educated walking out. This is a 10 out of 10 for me. Moving on. Some of you guys are waiting very patiently. I can practically feel it. 2 we've done. Wow. I knew this was gonna happen, but I still went about it anyway. 2, 10, 7, 2, 1.
An absurd amount of time later.
10. 6. Oh wait, crap, we need that one. John Wick Chapter 4. What can you say about it? It did exactly what it promised on the box. Keanu Reeves blows shit up and looks great doing it, and I really hope they stick to this ending. Let John Wick go. It's great where it is. Let it die with a sense of dignity and don't run it into the ground. That is my only suggestion to whoever might be watching. For me, John Wick Chapter 4 is a 9 out of 10. Let's keep going. That is a soft... No, that is a natural 20. Which normally is a good thing, but in this case, I have to bitch and moan for a bit. Number 20. VHS 1985. I like the VHS franchise. I well and truly do. This one did nothing for me. I felt so bored, so uninterested in most of the stories and characters. The only time I was like kind of shaken was the earthquake segment. And I'll be honest, I had to remind myself as I was writing this what the segments even were. I wasn't enthralled. I didn't like it. For me, VHS 1985 was a disappointing 2 out of 10. Believe it or not, we have 3 left. Let's go. 17. Haha. Right? That's 17? That's 17. Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. If you want a perfect example of how not to do a Marvel movie in 2023, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania is definitely a great example. I have a hard time disliking Paul Rudd in anything, let alone this cast. Jonathan Majors makes a great villain, and with things going the way they are, we're never gonna see it again. And that is very frustrating to me. But overall, this movie tried to copy very blatantly and obviously the Thor Ragnarok formula for success. And as fans of these movies, we notice. You're trying to appeal to us. Try something new. In the meantime, what we got was something that was ultimately disappointing, predictable, and just not fun. I gave Ant-Man and the Wasp a 5 out of 10. 7. My number 9 is Godzilla Minus One. Again, this is a movie I talk about here on the channel, where I go probably a bit too in-depth with it, and I'm not about to say that I dislike what I said, but I will say that there is something I realized that I feel I need to address. For this, this will be more personal, and if this isn't something you want to get into with me, I understand, and I appreciate you even watching this far. I'm gonna leave a little time code here to basically just tell you where to go in case you just wanted to get to the last spot. Once more, time code goes here. Okay, so I realized something. When I was talking about Godzilla Minus One, I realized that I wasn't on the same boat as everyone else. Everyone else was doing backflips about this movie, just praising it for their own reasons, and I believe that all those reasons are valid. I was not on this same boat, and taking inventory, I realized that every Godzilla movie I have criticisms and critiques over, but for some reason, I'm just not with everyone on this one. A long time ago, I saw Training Day for the first time, and it absolutely floored me. Me and my buddy that I saw it with, we were just going back and forth with how much we loved it. We thought it was great, and his mom is LAPD, so of course I had to ask, what did you think about this movie? Wasn't it great? And she said the coldest thing I think I've ever heard in my entire life when it comes to a film review. She said, technically, I appreciate what it is. From an emotional standpoint, it was too real, and I could not be entertained.
To explain it a little bit further, she saw that corruption firsthand, and it traumatized her. So to see that in a movie was really hard for her to witness.
And I'll admit, at the time, from a cursory standpoint, I understood what she meant. But it wasn't until I sat down and watched this movie and had these thoughts that I realized that the reason I'm not as in love with this movie, even with its critiques, even with its positives, as everyone else, I realized that depression as a theme maybe hit me harder than I thought it was ever going to. It's not that I don't dislike the movie, and I do actually enjoy the movie, but I think that's what keeps me from being in love with the movie like everyone else. I'm sorry for getting a little darker and a bit more real with you, but you're here on my channel, so maybe you want to understand who I am a little bit better. There's something for you. Godzilla Minus One is an excellent film with epic scores and beautiful visuals, but does falter in a few key areas. For me, Godzilla Minus One gets an 8 out of 10. Finally, we have our number 16 spot. I hope this was entertaining enough for you. I really do. This goes to the Super Mario Bros. Movie, a kid's cartoon for children, which was predictable, goofy. I think it relied a little bit too heavily on homages and the fact that it's Nintendo, and at its worst times felt masturbatory. At its best times, it did feel like a celebration of the video game that it was based on. There are times when Chris Pratt is not noticeable. There are times when he is. There are times when Seth Rogen is noticeable, and he's always noticeable. Jack Black, always noticeable. I know, again, it's a freaking kids movie, so that's why I'm giving it a 7 out of 10. And that is my 20 movies of the year as chosen by Chaos. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you all had a happy holiday, whatever it is you celebrate. I hope you all have a wonderful New Year's Eve. I'll see you at the movies in the new year. And as always, folks, please be sure to take care of yourselves out there, everybody.